Well, with the conflict between Iran and Israel in its fifth day, there are no signs that either side is willing to de-escalate as more rockets are fired into each other's territory. Javed Ali is an associate professor at the University of Michigan and a former U.S. security official, and he joins me now. Javed, good to have you with us once again. Now, more Iranian missile strikes making it through the Iron Dome, even this morning there in Israel. Is this the biggest test in recent times of Israel's defense systems?
Well, Garish, nice to be with you again as well. And so, what we're seeing now into day 5 of this conflict are both sides, both Iran and Israel, digging in for a protracted fight. And on the Iranian side, we have seen this continued pattern and pace of ballistic missile launches, drone attacks, probably cruise missiles as well. And this is, even though Israel has been hitting some of that capability in their campaign, Iran, I would assess, probably still has a significant capability to continue those types of attacks and even boost the volume of them in the coming days, if not weeks. So this has a potential, even in this phase of the conflict, to last for quite some time.
Well, they may have the capacity, but do they have the personnel? Because Israeli strikes have taken down another senior commander, Ali Shadmani, the second, chief of staff of war, effectively, Iran's top military man. Is this a big blow militarily, given that his predecessor was killed in strikes just days ago?
Well, in the opening salvo of the Israeli campaign, going back to last Thursday night into Friday morning, one feature of it was these strikes against very senior commanders in the Iranian military, and specifically the Iranian or the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which controls Iran's ballistic missile programs, its nuclear program, its unconventional warfare, weighing it on and on. So the fact that all those senior commanders have been killed and they're now replacements potentially are also being killed, it's a significant setback. But Iran has a large military. Even the IRGC has a force of 125,000 men with hundreds of generals on the ranks, and they're just going to keep moving people up the chain. So yes, in terms of their expertise and experience and relationship with the supreme leader, that's probably being degraded, but there's no shortage of manpower for Iran to continue to keep fighting the way they're fighting so far.
And from what you've observed so far, Javed, is Benjamin Netanyahu indeed targeting Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei?
I mean, that's another one of these aspects of the campaign that it's very difficult to know if that will happen. Does Israel have the capability to precisely locate the supreme leader and have the weapons it would require, even if they knew where he was, to render whatever effects they want to kill him or collapse the building or the structure that he's in? These are all open questions. What does that mean in terms of regime stability if the supreme leader is killed? Much like with the issue with removing these senior Iranian military officials, even if the supreme leader is killed, there is a council of guardians, a body of dozen senior ayatollahs in the regime who will just pick his replacement. So there's a structure in place in Iran for leadership succession, whether an ayatollah or the supreme leader dies of natural causes, like Ayatollah Khomeini did 30 or 40 years ago, or if Mohammed Khamenei is killed through an Israeli operation.
Yes. Now, a lot of people are asking, they don't see either side de-escalate. And the question is, how long can both Iran and Israel sustain heavy fire? Do you see this as being a rather protracted conflict, possibly at the very least months?
Well, the history of warfare shows that wars are easy to start. I don't say that lightly, but they're very difficult to end. And I'm not suggesting that we're going to see a 3-year war like between Russia and Ukraine, but I said this going back to last week. This is going to last for several days, if not longer, because obviously Israel had a red line and it was crossed, and they designed a very different military campaign against Iran. And likewise, because Iran got hit so hard, they couldn't just respond lightly. So I think that both sides are sort of trapped in this cycle of escalation right now, or not escalation, but at least sort of the way the fighting has unfolded. It has the potential to escalate, but I don't see in the near term the potential for de-escalation unless there's some diplomatic breakthrough on the Iran nuclear deal. And perhaps that's the only possibility for de-escalation.
Okay, Javed, let's go stateside where you are now. Donald Trump has arrived in Washington. What is his next move? He's left the G7 meeting early and at that meeting rejected claims from Emmanuel Macron that he was working on a ceasefire, but at the same time says he's planning something much bigger than that. How much bigger can it be?
Yeah, that's another thing that's so difficult to know, trying to ascertain kind of what the president's intentions are here. Clearly, the decision to leave the G7 was a big move. There were reports last night as well that either on the way back from the G7 or late last night or perhaps today, that there would be a full-up National Security Council meeting with the president chairing it and his whole national security cabinet there. Not sure, again, if that meeting has happened and if there will be any readout of that. But if the president's going to cut a trip like a G7 visit short and fly all the way back to the U.S. and have a National Security Council meeting, it is only because there were serious issues on the table for presidential level decision. Does that mean that the U.S. is now going to get involved militarily? Does that mean that there will be a bigger push on diplomacy? Unclear, but I think that's the signal that was being sent with the president's return and the National Security Council meeting being called.
Javed, this flashpoint in the conflict started because of Israel's warning about Iran's nuclear program. But CNN is today reporting that U.S. intelligence assessment had it that Iran was not actively pursuing a nuclear weapon and was years away from doing so. I think it was 3, according to that report. What do you make of that? Because, it has very light shades, I suppose, in a way of Iraq's weapons of mass destruction.
Well, Israel, and to a lesser degree, the United States have been focused on this issue of Iran's nuclear program and capability for decades now, certainly in the post 9/11 environment. And there have been these moments in time over that last 20 plus years where either US presidents or Israeli prime ministers have said that Iran is making progress towards some kind of breakout capability towards an actual weapon. And that would be an unacceptable red line for both countries. And prior to last week, we had seen the potential threats of operations against Iran. But this is something that the Israelis assessed, that they had enough intelligence that Iran was getting close to one of those red lines on uranium enrichment, and they went forward with their operation. This isn't the first time we've heard that claim from Israel or the United States.
Yes. And just finally, Javed, you've held positions with the FBI, Homeland Security and intelligence. Is it conceivable to you that the U.S. had no involvement in these strikes on Iran, as what Marco Rubio said initially?
Well, the U.S. messaging is that there was no overt U.S. involvement in the Israeli operation up until today, over the last 5 days, and that means that no U.S. aircraft personnel were being used to engage in these preemptive attacks. It doesn't mean that there was, prior to last week, some level of coordination or planning or intelligence sharing. If that occurred, we may never know the full details of that, but I think that was the message from both President Trump and Secretary Rubio and even Secretary of Defense Hegseth. The U.S. was not directly involved in this, and that is also a message to Iran.
Okay, Javed Ali, always grateful for your insights and analysis. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.